Morning, gentlemen. Welcome tonight to the Tuesday, December 9th, 2014 Committee of the Whole meeting. And as I call this to order, I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Clark, would you lead us?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now I'll go on with the approval of the agenda.
Ask a question.
Yes.
Why have we gone back to doing the Tuesday meetings out here at the big board table instead of in the conference room? Seems like it's a lot easier. This is supposed to be the meeting where we discuss things. We talk, we interact, we get decisions made, and always come at the round table and there. Now it's like all we have is.
This is why it happened, because I was told that I could have it either place I wanted it, and I put it here because I think there was some confusion about what was talked about in executive session and what isn't. I mean, it's easier to remember if you talked about it out here, and then if you talked about it in there. Like if somebody asks you a question, you don't have to be thinking, oh, was that executive session or not? So it just made more sense to draw the line. And plus, we've had a lot of presentations here. But
On nights we have presentations. I just feel like it's a lot easier to get business done when I'm sitting around the table with everybody, and I can see your facial expressions. I can tell when you might have a question, and I might have to explain a little bit more, or the same for me, you know. It just seems like it's a lot easier to see where we are and understand each other in the round table, if you will, the other room.
I get that too. I mean, I understand that, but
Myself personally, Madam Chair, Larry, I understand everything you're saying, but I'm just as comfortable out here, and I can see everybody, and we have been pretty well attended at this meeting lately, and that's crowded in there. We get 4 or 5 attendants.
I got 11 chairs in there, because I did count, so I wanted to make sure there could be room in there. So
Yeah.
maybe I'm alone, but.
Okay, well, we'll
I'm
take
glad our
it.
attendance is up too.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, we'll take it in consideration, you know, that if it's something where there's not going to be any, you know, outside participation, or, you know, people aren't really interested in the items that are coming up, they're pretty much business, then we can go in there and we'll, as I say, we'll take it under consideration. Larry, thank you. Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just to add, I think, you know, we can look at the agenda and see what
Yeah.
items are on there maybe. And, you know, some items might lend themselves to more of a sit down across the table from each other kind of discussion versus up here at that table. So
That's
I guess
exactly
leave
what
it
I
to your
was going
discretion
for.
to-
Yeah. You said it better than I did, but yes, that's what I was going for.
And if we had this many people, we couldn't fit in there, and that
Mhm.
wouldn't be right to be set up in there and not out here.
I know for the, to understand, we had this many and sometimes more in attendance at our meeting my last term, and we had every committee of the whole meeting in that room.
Right, yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
for 4 years, so.
Well, I'm just going by what I was told, and I know at the beginning of this year, there was some questions about what was said in executive session.
Okay.
So,
Made my
just safety
point.
protection. I personally don't care. If everybody wants it in there, I'm good with that too.
Okay. Thank you. And now we're at the approval of the agenda.
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
Thank you. I had a question. You did want to have another item for discussion.
I believe our attorney, David Laddie, is going to bring it up under his
Oh, all right.
report, and it's to discuss
Okay.
possibly putting meetings online.
Okay. Now,
So I have to apologize. When I'm writing, I can't see who said support.
mhm.
And I can't tell your voices.
I support it.
Thank you.
Okay. Then,
Should we all say aye?
time for a vote then. All those in favor of the agenda as proposed?
Aye.
All those opposed? We're moving on to public comment then. Anybody have wish to come forward on public comment?
Kathy Lane, 5366 Kimberly Drive. I want to thank the board for letting us have breakfast with Santa here. We had about 170 children and over 300 people total in that 3-hour period. My question now is, because you do have a deposit from the Optimist, is there anything we didn't do, or when would we get our refund back of that $250?
I've looked over this, you will get your deposit back, yes?
Okay, because we've never had to do it, I'm just breaking it up. Then I noticed on the agenda for Thursday night, you have a couple of items regarding increases in water and sewer rates, but it doesn't say anything about what those charges are going to be. So I would like more information on that. And again, I'm always concerned about the sign ordinance, and it doesn't say anything about what you're going to do to the sign ordinance. So those are some of the other items I'm interested in as a resident.
That's why we've got the explainers here tonight, so.
All right, thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Rushing?
Well, last time I was here, George Rushing, 2441 Valley Lane. Last time I was here, I was talking about storage, and I got my bill and it went up another $10. So I can't believe what's happening from $60 to $116, less than 2 years, whatever. And I was told that what we are charged is what a 4-family home is paying for water, which our bill is $116, so they're paying $116, but there's 4 people in the home using water, and they're charging us the same price to use the storage and they're getting water, which is processed and so forth. So if there's a 1-family man or a 2-family man, are they paying too much for storage? If in a 4-family home, they'd be paying like $29 each. If they get a 1-family man who's getting $116, should he be paying $129? See where I'm coming from?
Okay, Dan, do you want to explain the formula
On the
for sewers?
sewer bill? Yeah, the,
Oh,
Coming up to the podium.
yeah,
And I think you're on a flat rate, right, George? You're on a flat rate, right?
yeah.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so he has his own well, which I have, and then, of course, just paying for the sewage.
well, in the county, as you recall, just raised the sanitary sewer rates 2 months ago. And they hadn't raised them in 5 years, and they raised them a pretty significant amount at that time, but there won't be another increase in those county rates for 5 years. So there's not really anything we can do about it, but at least there won't be an increase from the county for another 5 years, because they made their one-time increase for 5 years, and then their rates will stay the same for 5 years.
Well, I know we're paying $60 for 5 years, and then now it's $116, it's almost double. I mean, that's quite an increase. That's almost 100% increase. From $60 to $116, like I say, well, there will not be another increase in another 5 years. But from $60 to $160, I could see maybe $80 or $90. And then maybe in 5 years, we'll
Do you have his address, Chris?
It was on Valley Lane, 2441 Valley Lane.
Let me look at your bill and from our account, and let me give you a call once I have a chance to look at the actual numbers.
I think my bill's the same as anybody does in
Yeah,
Grandma.
I just haven't looked at that particular bill, but let me look at it and look at what what has happened to rates, and we can talk about it.
But I'm speaking for everybody in Granite. It's surprising nobody else here. I'm speaking for everybody who lives in the township. The increase in the sewer bill.
It's expensive to operate sewer systems.
Well, wait till you hear after what your supervisors in the water sewer department are making. There's 17 people in the water and sewer department, supervisors, making over $100,000 a year. So what is that in a year total? That's $1,700,000. And then I had a paper which I get Mr. Guzak, remember?
Yes.
They were all making over $100,000 in overtime. $100,000 in overtime. there's another 170,000, or 1,700,000. There's over $3 million just in 17 people.
Where was this at?
That's at the county.
Sewer and water department.
And the
County or the city?
It's the county.
Okay.
Another thing is, for those people to make over $100,000, they would have to work 10 hours a day, Monday through Friday. They would have to work Saturday 8 hours, Sunday 8 hours, and that means they'd have to work from 8 o'clock to 7 o'clock at night. And then they would have to work for 48 weeks, without a day off. That means working Saturday, Sunday, holidays, every holiday, not a day off for 48 weeks. Then they wouldn't make that money. It comes out to, they would only be making 91,000. So where do they get 100 and something? Where it's only 91,000, just because that's 38 hours a week overtime. Figure that out by $50, which you're making over $50 an hour. And it only comes up to $91. So you mean to tell me that they're staying home for Christmas, working Christmas, New Year's, July, and working from 5 o'clock till 7 o'clock at night every day, except Saturday and Sunday?
I don't have any control over what the county does, I'm sorry.
Well, I don't know whether you have, but I'm just explaining what is going on. Somebody should investigate these people. I don't know if Mr. Reardon here, he worked on the police force, he was retired, I think, isn't he?
Yes.
And see, maybe he knows some of his friends or somebody that can investigate these people, if they're abusing the system or what. And I think if they're abusing it, to me, I might be wrong, I'm not saying for sure. But I'm saying, if they are abusing the system, they should be fired.
Well, I will get you I'll get back to you after getting with the water department, Mr. Russian, and find out what the budget is as far as supervisors.
Do we have your phone number?
Because like I say, these people are paying for water, right, $116. We're paying for sewer, $116.
Right.
But they're getting sewer, which we're not even getting processed water. We got to process water. You got the water softener by salt, right? So we got to process our own water. So we're paying only for sewer, where they're getting two perks. They're getting sewer and water around the same place.
Okay. Mr. Russian, can I have your phone number? I'll get back to you.
Okay. Another thing, being put, you have a DPW.
Yeah.
What's the cost to run that a year? Does anybody know?
Close to 13 million.
13 million? Yes. 13 million. And how many people working in the DP?
You got it right there.
We have 13 employees, 14 employees in the Department of Public Works right now.
14?
Yeah, that's 9 full-time technicians, 2 supervisors, and 3 clerical staff.
Well, I was figuring it out. They have that many supervisors. You say 14? I'm sorry. Did I get your...
14 employees, 9 technicians, 2 supervisors, and 3 clerical staff.
Well, I had that up.
14 employees altogether.
14 employees, right?
Yeah.
So it'd be 14 employees. So if you got 14 employees, they pay their wages, then they get vacation pay, holiday pay. Then you have to pay their health care, which is dental, vision, health care. Then you gotta pay vacation, health care,
Social Security.
Social
like,
Security, pay Social Security, workman's comp, workman's, for all these people. And, like I said, it was what, 13 million?
Almost 13 million.
Yeah, but that's not just wages. The 13 million includes, buying salt, buying all kinds of other things.
Operating vehicles.
Well, that's what I was gonna bring up.
Right.
Then they gotta pay for vehicles,
Yeah.
to maintain the vehicles.
Right.
Then you gotta buy insurance for the vehicles.
Right.
So what I'm getting at, why not outsource it? Have you ever thought of outsourcing?
Because in most cases where it's been outsourced, it's more expensive.
Well, I don't know, 13 million if you can outsource it, because There's American Sewer, which is, there must be a dozen of them in here, which is 24-hour emergency service, and sewer jet service, drain cleaning, video drain inspection. They do the whole works. So, you don't, are they repairing sewers and water mains every day? Every day, sewer and water mains? You gotta be kidding me.
Well,
This
certainly,
is 36 square miles of land that you have miles and miles of pipe through, yes. And some of this is 50, over 50 years old, so yes, we are in a position to do that, yeah.
I thought you'd get maybe 25, 50 years, 75 years before you maybe get a water main break or a sewer
Oh,
break.
no.
There's maintenance,
That's
there's
nice.
repairs and maintenance, David.
Madam Chair.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate, you know, you bringing all this information because, I mean, obviously you scrutinize where the county, you know, is spending their money and ours too. Our budget is actually online, you know. If you have internet access, you're able to go onto our website and you can look at, actually, the DPW's budget is on there. And you can look at every expense of our township. I'm sure that, you know, our chairperson or our DPW person would probably be glad to sit down with you and talk about it further. I'd be glad to put you in touch with one of our county commissioners to represent our area so you could bring up some of your issues with the county. I'm not sure we're going to be able to answer all your questions tonight, but, you know, I think everybody here appreciates you scrutinizing where tax dollars go and where our water bill money goes, because, I mean, we're all concerned about that too.
Well, I don't know what's going on. I mean, I just brought it up being that, you know, people get strapped for money and the first thing they think
Absolutely.
about, how can they cut back and, you know, outsource. Excuse me, Mr. Hanson.
I was just gonna point out to you, I just happened to have this with me, this is my sewer bill. Came in my $116.31.
Right.
Right.
So-
You don't have a
That's
well.
what
You got a
No,
well.
I have a well.
Right, that's
Yep,
what he's
county
got, he's
sewer.
got a well.
Yeah.
Just wanted to point out to you, we're all paying the same.
That's 3 months?
Yeah.
3 months.
Yeah, 3 months quarterly. Yep, and $84.29 of that goes straight to the county.
Right. Yeah, like everybody in township.
Correct.
Same
Yeah.
bill. Another thing, I was talking to DPW in there. Are they clerks or secretaries or what?
They're clerical people, yes.
They're clerks? Because as I was talking, I was mentioning something, and one clerk says, you know, I only make $40 an hour. I only make 40, but I have a master's degree. I says, what? I only make $40 an hour, and I have a master's degree.
We don't have anybody
Yeah,
making
you must be
$40.
talking about somebody at the county.
Yeah, because we.
Because if anybody here in this office told you, any of our clerks that here told you that, they were lying. Trust me.
Yeah,
So that's what I'm saying.
there is nobody here making $40.
Well, that's what I thought.
That we are the clerical department, yeah.
I mean, people in the shop, hiring a shop, don't even make $15 an hour.
Yeah.
And I was wondering, I scratched my head, I said, $40 an hour, which is like $320 a day, $1,600, that's over $83,000.
She doesn't make 40.
No, no.
Might have been trying to get you cranked up or something, but, or maybe misunderstood.
I don't know if she got me cranked. Well, she didn't get me cranked up. I mean, good for her, she can make that kind of money, and you guys are willing to pay it. I
Sorry,
mean,
it's just not the
So,
truth.
is there any way to get anybody involved to see if these supervisors in the water and sewer department
I will get back with you on
using the
that.
system? Or the
Just give me your phone number and I will call you back on it, yes.
810
810
694
694
3485.
3485. Okay, I will get back with you by the end of the week.
Because like I said too, one person paying as much as the.
Yeah,
one
well,
energy, two perks.
as you can see, there's people on the board paying the same thing, so.
The only way to get around is if you could put a meter on your well.
Mr. Laddie told me that, and I checked it out. You know what, how much does it cost you to run your water softener? How much water runs through it to recycle it? When you take, mine would run, I figured it out, 1,800 gallons in 3 months. Now, what would 1,800 gallons just to fix proof on my water?
Right.
And then I pay for the meter, then I pay for the water.
That's all I mentioned, that's the only way to verify if this rate's too high, because I agree with you, because there is meters and everything else, But on ours, there's no meters, so the difference has to be us, you know, the ones without a well, with well.
With well, correct.
With well, so if you put a meter on there, there's a possibility that you could use less water than what they're saying.
Can you put a meter on just what goes down my sewer? Well, I don't know, because all my, when I process my water softener turns on, I don't get on the sewer. So the meter wouldn't help me there.
That's
Well,
another thing that I'll get back to you on, okay?
So, thank you very much,
Mhm.
and I hope something's done about it, and
Okay.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas to
Thank
you, thank you.
I hope I don't have to come back.
Okay.
We hope you do.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else for public comment? Okay, thank you. All right, and now we'll go to the township agenda for Thursday night. And the first thing on the agenda will be the treasurer's, going through, it'll be your treasurer's report and the FANG, we will be asking for the membership dues for FANG.
Madam Chair?
Yeah,
I think the membership, the FAG dues have been paid.
Yeah,
Just want
the
to put that on
membership
the
dues.
agenda to let the board know that those dues have been paid.
yeah, okay.
And that's an annual membership that we
Yeah.
pay.
I've got a question on that.
Mhm.
Do each of the townships contribute the same amount, or who
It's
determines what?
according to, go ahead.
It's based off a formula on SED and population. Because we have one of the actually, we do have the highest SED in Genesee County. We're one of the most populous communities in Genesee County. We've got the distinction of paying the most. Unfortunately.
And this is a countywide
Yes,
effort, I take it. I mean,
Correct. Yes.
Not everybody's in it though. Not every township's in it.
no. Many.
Or city.
This is something that, if I may interject, we talk about quite frequently in the police committee, Clark, and I might interject too. I think it is valuable to us. I think the return we get and what FANG does in our community is done very well. I'm sure we
Sure.
some things outside this meeting.
no, I'm just curious as to how it works.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
I know it's based off population. I didn't look at the value part, but it's based off
So
population.
it's countywide, but not every township or
And it's not
city
mandatory,
participates.
right? It's not mandatory.
So
Yeah.
does FANG only operate in those communities that fund it, or?
No. For example, City of Flint is not paying any dues because part of their agreement at the time was that they'd have to participate by sometimes a number of personnel. Because of their cutbacks, they haven't supplied their, is it two? That there's two full-time? There's one now. They're down to one, so they cut it in half. So there's been, we've asked the City of Flint, we've talked to the EM, to Mr. Early, to see if he could contribute somehow with that. Currently, they don't have any resources to do that, so we've been working with Flint on that. The other municipalities have paid that formula, and the other ones, like for us, for example, we paid $49,000, plus we have one person assigned to FANG on a grant, which pays 50% reimbursement back to the township for salary and benefits.
Okay,
So,
very good.
in essence, it's kind of a wash.
Yeah.
And we do go out through all the communities.
Mhm.
FANG does, actually, they go statewide, investigate anything to do with narcotics. The other benefit we get out of it is if we do have a meth lab, for example, because of our membership to FANG, we don't have to pay for the cleanup. I think if you had one meth lab here, and we had to pay for it, the cost would be prohibitive. Depending on.
Yeah.
Just mine.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, and going on from there, we have no unfinished business, so the new business will be that the board shall consider a resolution to reject the offer to receive all tax reverted properties listed in the memo from the Genesee County Treasurer's Office dated November 21st, 2014. And I think that we're going to keep one.
That's true, Madam Chair. Every year, we go through the same exercise where the county says to us, they're going to deed a number of parcels to the township through the tax purchase process, unless we reject those parcels. And this year we have, it's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, there were 6 eligible to be transferred to us. We're going to reject 5 of those.
The one we're gonna keep is a piece of property that we have earmarked for condemnation and demolition. So we'd rather be able to do that as the owner of the property and then turn around and place it on the tax rolls than have it owned by the land bank.
Yeah.
So there'll be a slight amendment to the resolution that was in your packet, and it will just take out the property that we're talking about, and that's the 3212 Reed Road property.
Any other questions or comments in regard to that?
Repeat that address again?
Pardon?
There's the address you said, the Reed Road?
3212.
Okay, misheard that.
Okay.
All right.
Did you have a question on it, Glenn?
No, I just didn't hear him right. I wanted to make sure that
Oh, it was
my
the same
packet was
address?
correct, yeah.
Okay.
So,
All right. Going on, the board shall consider an amendment to ordinance number 38 to add regulation of secondary fire suppression water service for non-domestic customers. This is the second reading of this amendment to the ordinance.
Madam Chair,
Which of you are going?
Well, I'd like to talk about this one because we've had discussions with, well, you received a written attorney opinion about a different topic, but the same party regarding the request for this addition of the fire service. So I'd like you to, that's on your agenda, but we'll talk about that a little bit later in the closed session by virtue of that
All right.
attorney.
Going on then, the board shall consider an ordinance to amend this Grand Blanc Township sewer system capital fee and usage charges. This is the first reading of this amendment to the ordinance. Mr. Potter.
Yes, this ordinance would increase the sewer charge per REU from $11.34 to $12.24, effective February 1st of 2015. This increase is in line with the 2012 financial model. As you know, we're reviewing the model at this time, and that may change as we get through that process.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Mr. Potter? I think that we've gone through that and all of those. Anybody have any more comments? Well, that was an easy one for you.
So, by the way, Dan, can I confirm it's going from 1134 to 1224?
Yes, 1134 to 1224.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and going on to the second one, the board shall consider an ordinance to amend the Grand Blanc Township water system capital fee and usage charges. This is the first reading of this amendment to the ordinance.
Yes, this would increase the readiness to serve charge for water from $10.50 to $11. And the commodity charge would remain the same for the time being at $5.78, which includes the recent county increase that we passed. And then we'll wait to review the commodity charge when we finish the financial model. There's a couple of changes in the ordinance that you received. The effective date will become February 1st, 2015. And the capital fee, the 2,500 was in writing and 2,600 was in numbers, so the 2006 needs to be changed to 2006. I made that change and we'll be adding that to the packet Thursday.
did that in 2016. What was that number? Which area?
2,600. The numerals, the written parts at 2,500. That's that gives you a copy.
Okay. So that's adjusted according to the model, right?
Correct. The 2012 model now.
Yeah.
Maybe some adjustments after we get through the financial model review.
Okay, so those will be, can we list those, Chris, for the, on the Thursday night meeting, the price, the changes, you know, the actual numbers?
Okay.
I will get the changes to.
Okay, thanks.
So it'll be a first reading in this month, and a second reading in January meeting with effective February 1st.
Okay, and they'll start the February 1st after that. Okay. Thank you. Okay. And now we'll go to the sign ordinance amendment.
Madam Chair, you're going to have a representative of Clear Zoning attend your Thursday night meeting and discuss with you the changes that the sign ordinance underwent under the direction of the Planning Commission and after a public hearing with the Planning Commission. And you have in your packets
Yes.
a letter from Clear Zoning that describes the changes to the ordinance. And I believe, Chris, do we have a copy of the sign ordinance, the proposed changes on the website?
I remember if I sent that to Robbie or not.
Well, we might be able to put at least Clear Zoning's letter on the website for folks if they want to take a look at it. The changes include, and again, the experts will be here on Thursday, but the changes include updating the definition of a sign that encompasses a broader array of elements that are considered signs, including making clear that signs that are can also be messages that are available from visible from the public and for public travel. Talks about the requirements, size requirements for wall signs, regulations for ground signs, special event signs, and discussions of letter height and things like that. And so what we should probably do, again, if we can get the summary put up on the website and anybody wants to take a look at it, is welcome to do that. Otherwise, Thursday, Clear Zoning can answer questions and explain in detail to anybody that has a question.
Okay.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Just, I wanted to bring up too that we actually forwarded, I believe it's in our packet, that the information was forwarded to the chamber
Right.
for their review and for bringing it up with their members.
Right.
And I don't know that we received any feedback from that, but.
Yeah, our public hearing and our request for information were, I think it was pretty well received by folks.
I have had no objections or favorable comments, either one, so I really don't know.
I like it because it addresses some of the things with the, what I've always called banner signs. I'm sure it's not the proper term, but referring to signs that are from windows and stuff of businesses and so forth. This addresses that.
Okay. And that was passed very favorably from the planning commission, was it not?
It was. After many, I mean, we discussed that over a period of months. Worked on it diligently.
Okay, moving on. The board shall consider the approval of fitness equipment to be used in the police department fitness room at a cost of not to exceed $40,000. And okay, Mr. Chief Stan or Aaron?
Madam Chair,
Yeah.
if I may, to start
All
the
right.
discussion. I had asked Kathy, our finance director, a couple of weeks ago after following the police meeting to determine what funds, what money may be left over in the police department. The revenue was up from over our projected revenue for the year in the police revenue. And I don't know what her final number was on that, but in our police committee meeting, we met. There was a room that was constructed over there 7 years ago when the building was built, and it's never been. It's a fitness room. It's never been equipped. If this township, I say us as administrators, if we're really committed to employee wellness and health care, if we really are, the police officer Sergeant Aaron has put together a very good proposal to equip that room. And what I want to do is make a motion on Thursday night to take the up to and not to exceed $40,000 per the proposal that was presented to us in that police meeting. And it's very detailed, listed out with every piece of equipment, men and women's equipment to equip that room. I've read a lot of documentation on if you are going to join a fitness club and you'll think of 10 reasons when you get in your car why you won't stop at that center on your way home. You might have good intentions during the day, but when you get in your car, it ain't going to happen. If you have a fitness center at your employment you take a half hour at the end of your shift or before your shift and you do your workout, chances are you really are going to commit to a get well or a fitness program. And so I can't think of anything that can help us. And when you read the documentation about, and I'm not going to pick on law enforcement, anybody individually, but there about 40% of American law enforcement officers are overweight or considered by the U.S. government to be obese. And well, you know, in that profession, that's the last thing we really want, right? But at the same time, I believe the benefits to this would pay back in dividends in our health care. So with that, I would like to propose that, Kathy, did we find the 40,000 in the budget?
There will be approximately 44,000 remaining
Okay.
in this budget.
Very good. And that's what I was told today too, so I just wanted to confirm.
And your motion's going to be not to exceed.
Not to exceed 40,000. The proposal that we have with all the equipment to date, I think lists, Aaron, what is it, 32, 3, 4, and we were going to get a treadmill or an upgrade to that. That was 2 weeks ago. Help me
About
out.
39.
Huh?
About 39.
39. Okay.
Question.
Yeah.
Yes.
Is that intended just for the police department employees? I mean, like would fire or anybody else ever use it?
Currently at the police department, that would have to be for discussion. Part of our problem we have is with
Security?
security with our records and other things that we have to comply to state and federal standards on security clearances on getting to the building and having it open. So that's the only drawback.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
And through you as well, to the audience and as well as the rest of the board. Myself personally, I made the comment in the police committee meeting, I'll repeat it here. I would like for us to develop let the employees get involved in it, but develop, we've got many rooms left in this building over here once the police department vacated this area. I would like to do the same thing right here for this side of the building. And it would help a lot from the interaction of the dispatch trying to let people in and out and all those kinds of things. But I have no reason to think that it wouldn't be just as beneficial on this side of the property as it would be over there.
How do you feel about treadmill desks? I think they're all.
Well,
Your computer doesn't work unless you're running.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
great.
Madam Chair?
Okay, yes.
Yeah, I'd like to look at the feasibility, you know, I appreciate the ability of people in this building to be able to use it in the fire and whatever, but to look at the feasibility of maybe working something out in the building that would allow, you know, for the security clearances, and I'm just wondering financially if it'd be more advantageous to do that than to have two separate areas. The other thing is that we probably need to look at is that we're going to do this if we need to budget for maintenance. And this stuff doesn't last forever, and it does need repairs occasionally.
I
So
think
that would be a consideration, you know, rather than just the 40,000 that we're looking
so mainly, so do people agree with the concept? But yeah. Yes, Earl?
Yes, Madam Chair, I just have a question. I think it's a great idea. The only problem I see being fiscally responsible. Even in my department, we have excess funds, and normally those excess funds go back to the finance department and then put back to make sure that our fund balance is at 12 to 15%, okay? Just because it's in my budget, I don't use it. You know, mine always goes back, okay? And we're in a crunch right now that we can't even fund our new deputy finance director. And I think at this point, maybe in the future, we could look at that, but we need to finance the finance director that we don't have. We've only got one of them back, and there's a fifth position that needs to be filled, so to me, it wouldn't be fiscally responsible to have equipment solely for the police when we can't even maintain our finance department. So, but once we get past that, but just because it's in my budget, if I haven't used it, it goes back to the fund balance, because if we don't have that fund balance and keep 12 to 15%, we're in violation. Plus, that's our lifeline. Without that fund balance, we have to fund that first, and then any excess, we've got other debt that we have to work on. So, and possibly there could be, there are healthcare memberships that are very, very $10 a month.
at. Madam Chair,
Yes.
May I ask our treasurer, what is our fund balance currently right now?
I don't know the exact number the finance director would
Percentage,
have.
Well,
are we at the
And it's gonna be at the end of the
15%?
year, we have to adjust it.
Before we get off track, remember this, we're looking at one particular departmental budget here with
Right.
this
Right.
money, not general fund,
Yeah.
so.
Well, that
Speaking
that
of-
comes out of general fund.
But speaking of what our treasurer was saying is that, you know, if our fund balance is low, then it doesn't matter what department's going to
Right.
then, you know, but I just want to make sure that, you know, we're,
Yeah, we've got the 12 to 15% that we have to hit, so I would want to hold off until after we know what our fund balance is actually at,
Go ahead.
and once we've funded our other departments.
Yes.
Madam Chairman,
Clark?
again. Okay, couple of things. We have the money for the, in 2014, but in the budget left over in the police department. That's what I want to get the equipment purchased out of 14. We've just approved 2 weeks ago a budget for 2015. The last thing I want to do is push this kind of an expense over into that. Second is two things. I don't want to create a malicious compliance to budget where, by God, if you don't spend it, you're going to lose it, okay? If we make a budget for 2015 and a department does things, whatever, overtime savings, we've had several personnel positions we did not fill in the police department, which created some of this money that I'm talking about. The last thing is, in the police department alone, we're going to spend $1.6 million in dental, medical, in all health-related premiums. We're going to do the same thing on this side of the aisle. $3.2 million, and we're going to sit here and argue that $40,000 isn't a good investment in the wellness of the employees here. I'm done.
Madam Chair, I'm not saying it's not a good investment, I'm just saying that funds are needed other places. That's all. I agree that fitness is good, okay, but if we can't even have a deputy finance director, it's in the budget, but we can't fund it. So just because it's there and then we're short a body, that makes no sense, so.
If I may also, Madam Chair.
Yes.
You know, Mr. Guzak, with all due respect, the 40,000 is a one-time expenditure. If you're looking at position, you're going to need to budget the wages, salary, and benefits over a period of 25 to 30 years. So there is a significant difference.
Yeah,
When you're trying to argue that logic, I'm just trying to point that out.
I'm just trying to point out that every year, departments give up excess to fund our fund balance so that we can be in the 12 to 15%. Not everybody does that, okay? But without that, we wouldn't have that percent. That's all I'm pointing out.
I don't, but if we have a deficiency underneath 12 to 15%, then I would agree with your argument. But we don't know that. You're the treasurer, and you don't even know what our 12 to 15%
That's
rate
because
is.
it comes at the end of the year and it's done by the finance department, which is what I indicated.
Well, I would, if I was a treasurer, I may know that, but
They haven't crunched the final numbers.
at least you should have a pretty good idea. Who's that?
All right.
I'm going to make the motion, Madam Chair, on Thursday night.
Yeah, that's great. Go ahead
I'll
and make the
support
motion.
you because I think it's important. And there will be warranties for this, with this stuff for several years. So that maintenance won't have to go into it in the beginning. And how many people are actually in the police department that might be really interested in using this?
Probably the vast majority,
So how many?
40-ish.
See, that's a good investment.
$40,000 for 43 people to have a, yeah. And just, again, I'm not speaking on the agenda, to your question about other, but we couldn't think of a reasonable, easy way to do it, but it was brought up to try to figure out a way to get other township employees, fire and personnel too.
Well, I think they also benefit
Or
from it.
create another room.
I think if you're going to do it, then all employees should be able to use it.
And what I want to add to that is, and let me get there, again, our supervisor manages our discussions with the healthcare people, but I know where I work, I'm in conversation with our healthcare providers, and if our employees have lower blood pressure and aren't overweight and pass certain physicals, we get a reduction in our premiums. We don't
Yes.
pay as much in healthcare cost. And a lot of companies are doing incentives for employees to maintain their wellness or get healthier because it will save money for that healthcare cost in the immediate future, not distant, immediate future. So-
All the healthcare people
They're
that
all
have dealt
pushing that
with
now,
it,
right.
they're all saying that
And-
they will give them premium.
I think we can get our money back on this in no time.
Just a couple of final comments from me, but No, I'm not against this, and I'm not, I want to make sure we have money in our budget,
Yeah,
where it's
yeah.
12 to 15%. I think part of it is, you know, the culture that we want to create here too.
Mhm.
You know, is it just a place to come to work and put in your 8 hours? And also understand that, hey, if we have department heads that are doing everything they can to save some money because they do have an area they want to put some money in, I'm all for that. As long as we're not cutting township services to be able to do that. I'm wondering if there's some other expenses coming down the road in the police department. I've seen a little bit on these body camera, you know, in the news, and I'm just wondering if that's an expense that we're going to be looking at real quick here. That
Oh, sorry, I've been looking for you.
is
Yes.
that something that, I mean, we didn't budget for that, I don't think, for this next year. I'm just wondering if that's going to be an
Well,
expense that.
let's look at, okay, I
They're
think,
between $400 and $500 a piece.
Yes.
We're evaluating at least 2 body cam vendors currently. Not sure which direction we're going to go. We're going to try and see if funding opens up next year. The president has allegedly, not allegedly, he stated that I believe $70 million may be available to fund. But we're looking at that process. If that's a direction that we're going to go, then I'll come back to the board and figure out how we're going to pay for it, but that's something that we can do.
And $400 or $500 sounds cheap, but I heard that the big expense was in storing the information off the cameras. But I am all for them. I'll go right on camera here saying I am so in favor of these things.
Yeah, and it depends, and storage is a big issue. Not to mention some privacy issues and Freedom of Information Act requests and other things that are up for discussion, and then policy and training, et cetera.
yeah,
So that is a concern.
And we are running a test program of some sort?
Yes, we're currently evaluating 2. There's many vendors out there, and most of them are the same. It's just a matter of how we want to archive video. With our current video system, we have enough terabytes in there to handle that currently, but I don't know for how long, and it also depends on how long we're going to archive. Do we want to stay with the state records retention system? Do we want to go a little bit longer than they require? Do we want to go as far as statute of limitations on civil suit, which would be 3 years? Those are all things that we have to determine.
okay. Any other questions of the chief?
Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Aaron, I want to compliment you on the presentation, the written presentation. You did a very good job.
Thank you.
Okay. Did you make a motion, Clark?
No, he's
Well, thank you.
Oh, that's- you want to make a motion, okay, I misinterpreted. Okay, and now, the fire department, Mr. Heiser. And Mr. Brigham. Chief, yeah.
Hello, Mr. Heiser. Well, talking right now, we made it earlier, he handled the accounting, I handled the fire side.
Okay.
Thank you. I submitted a document for budget approval at the next meeting. The document is covering amending the 2014 budget final and also the proposed budget for the year 2015. And then I also propose the debt service requirement for the retirement of long-term debt that we have to pay in 2015 and 2016. So that's sort of a new item, but I think it's very critical that knowing your debt service and the source of payment is extremely important. So I added that in. If you'll stay with me, I numbered the pages. I'm not going to read this to you, but on page 1, I really broke down the issues between 2014 and 2015 that I could identify, and I'm referred to 2014 as a transitional year for the fire department, in my opinion, with all the changes that went on, and then under new leadership for 2015. You know, things that finally been put in place. We still have a few open ends. I'm not going to read this to you because you can read this yourself.
And what I want to do is present to you on page 2. This is the budget for the remainder of 2014. The first column that you can see to the left is the original budget that was proposed, and to the right is what I, after my analysis, would be the increases or decreases, but the final budget for December 31st, 2014. Just very quickly, the revenues I'm proposing we will have a slight decrease in the projected revenues, but our revenues will be $1,196,191. I break down in a little more detail the personnel costs between full-time and part-time, and calling to your attention the revised amount is based on actual analysis that I did, including reversing accrual entries and projecting out the payrolls and payroll taxes and health care for the rest of the year. I'm proposing the full-time salary benefits at $442,900, and then going down to the part-time staff here with adjustments here, as you can see, I'm showing the increase and decreases. I think we're going to end up at $375,500. Moving on to what I call the overhead and fixed expenses, the general employee-related expenses of $31,000. You can see that in the final. The training is $23,500. Building and maintenance of the buildings here, our electricity went up, like I often say. It's skyrocketed. And I look at the bills, and that's what it is. And we're going to probably budget the same amount for 2015. With my finger on 14 to 15, operating expenses, postage, operating supplies, public education, service charges, and then contracted services, the accountant for 13, the accountant for the audit fee for 14, and $21,350. Total expense that I can see against the amended budget is $983,650. I looked at the transfer of funds that we take from the general fund, transfer of funds, for our internal fund. That's for the vehicles, equipment, retirement, and maintenance. I'm looking at transferring $206,500. We have a contingency in place. When you look at the total expenditures and the revenues, that I see very comfortably, we'll have $1,541. So that's my proposed budget for the general fund. And then, fortunately, you have one page for the internal fund. So we'll move right along here. The internal fund is a special fund, and we received the restricted funds from the township, for the retirement of debt, and I made sure we honor that commitment here. We show the transfer in of funds from the township to $206,500, and then the contribution from the township of $122,10, which I think we've already billed you for, and will be forthcoming. If it's ready, I'll pick it up and take it home tonight. Going on here, the internal fund expenditures, you got the depreciation fund, interest expense. I want to call your attention, we had a disaster, we had a lot of repairs and maintenance in vehicles and equipment. And just after we ordered the $825,000 vehicle, so and then, with all the recalls and the airbags and repairs we had to do, I actually had to increase the budget $57,000. That's a big number, but it is what it is. I believe in transparency, and honest projections. So you can see the revised budget. I got rid of the vehicle replacement because we replaced the big one, and then this extra depreciation we really don't have any room in this for. Gain on the sale of assets. I want to mention that I have not projected the cost or the recovery of the sale of the vehicles in this budget. I got asked that question. Did you sneak that in there? No, I did not. Accountants, unless I see the check and it clears or I got cash, it doesn't get recorded. But if there's a possible expense out there, like a repair, it's in the budget. So it's sort of reverse positive thinking, but it's conservative. So that's my training. I can't change. And you can see the expenditures we have. The final, I'm looking at the final ending budget. We should have 44,510 in a revised budget at the end of the year. I think this is probably, and I looked at the other budgeting prior years before. Well, really spent a lot of time, and this is my specialty, so I, you know, enjoy doing this. I also step down, I also place at the bottom of that page that, you know, the debt service we got for the next 3 years. You know, we can't forget that, you know, it's like a credit card, you know, once a month, this is every year. So you can see, we're gonna double up in 15, you know, for the old 2010 pumper, and then we have the new vehicle that is for 3 years, and you can see the planned debt service, and I'm not forgetting that debt service, you know, so. Turning the page, I put together a debt service for 2015, which we're going to fund with our 2014 funds. You know, in other words, we're not going to borrow 15, you know, we're pushing forward 14 funds. And as I'm looking at the source of funds, the township contribution, we'll probably have some transfers from either the general fund to balance total debt of $222,982. And then we have the use of the funds, as you can see, the 2010 pumper, Pierce pumper, and then, you know, our first payment on the Pierce finance through Oshkosh Capital. Did I say that right? Oshkosh? Okay. I was nervous. Okay, then there's a separation page. That's so that I know I'm finished. These are my flags. Okay, moving on, we'll kind of move forward here. We're in this 2015 budget. I spent a lot of time on that, and I budgeted in, you know, the certain assumptions on representation groups that are involved. And also, I have the new chief in, and I have the old chief out. You know, so with the revenue looks like it's going to be approximately the same in the general fund. And then I carry the same expenses over that I had, that I could see, but they were increased for 2015. For these full-time, part-time, and you can see the general employee-related. And I do want to point out that our total labor costs in the fire department, with all the bells and whistles, the FICA, the FICA, the psych, the MICA, and all that, you know, we're looking at 68%. All right. There was always talks that it was around 35 or 40. Well, I know better than that, you know. So I presented this in more of an acceptable form, which is, you know, generally accepted accounting principles. So you, as the decision makers, you know, see it. So, okay, turning the page, we continue on with the, you know, our building maintenance. I kept that up there at the 72,000. That utility bill, I hope it doesn't go over 22 for the electricity, 22.5. The rest of it's overhead, contractual service, the accountant fees, and so forth. This year, I'm going to budget out $206,000 into the internal fund, and we'll have a surplus in the general fund of $2,840. Everyone, am I going okay? I'm not going to read it to you. So.
I know.
If you need sleep assistance, this will help you. So, internal fund, you can take a look at the internal fund, and you can see we are funding. We funded all of our expenditures. We set money aside for debt retirement, depreciation to beef up the restricted funds that we need. And so for 2015, I see a surplus of $1,510, and our debt service, this is 15, but for 16, we're going to have to pay $122,145. Turning to page 10, you can see the source of funds to pay the debt on the Oshkosh Capital equipment. We're actually using our own fund balances at this time. We're not, you know, and if anything, we even have a surplus. I hate to use the word surplus lately here. So, you know, I'm projecting, you know, that we're managing our money, and with me being down there dogging every day, you know.
And he is. You're doing a great job. I appreciate it. Thank you.
And separation, that means I pause, and we're almost at the end. Okay, there are no tests on this. So, page 12, this is called trending. It's a forensic tool I use, you know, as part of my profession. And I just wanted to point out, you know, what I call trending in salaries and wages and so forth that you can see here. And I used the audit report from 2011, 12, 13, and then what our budget is for 14, and then for 15 here. And I use the word new leadership budget in 2015, transition in 2014. You can see the percentages in the center there of what we were paying for staffing costs and what the what the count was that we had for the number of people. We peaked out in 2014, as far as increases of 68%. And actually, we're right-sizing in 2015. Do you see that? It actually came down a little bit, budget. In other words, that's how the numbers played out. And you can see the revenue, that hasn't changed much since 2012 if you read across the bottom. So I got to give some more thought to that. So just my comments here. One thing that is in the budget, in the general fund budget, and that has to do with the OPEB requirement. And I believe we have $38,000 budgeted for our OPEB for 2015. This is a retired chief and the office manager. And that's a separate budget item. And when I looked at the first time, they said it was going to be $10,000 to $12,000, and I already knew it was going to be close. I've been around, I know too much. So I said that's going to be close to 40, and I think we got budgeted $34,700, which is fine. I just want to break it out separately so you know it's a fixed cost. What page did I leave off at here? 12. Okay, 12. Page 13 is just, this is when all the repairs were going on. I get this notice here about possible defects in the Pierce equipment. Safety equipment, I'll let Robert address that issue here. Why don't you take it now?
Okay. Last month, we received a notification that Pierce Manufacturing had a recall on the velocity pumpers with the TAC 4 front suspension, which all our new trucks have. Out of the 3 trucks that we have, 1 was actually affected. It's already been tested and it passed the recall, so it's all taken care of. Unfortunately, we have had some major repairs come up over the last few months on our frontline trucks, our last 3 years of vehicles, and we've been able to take care of that. But Pierce is still a very reputable manufacturer. We stand behind it.
Thank you. If you just go to 13, 14, that's just the extension of the recall warning. And then we went out, I was pushing for an appraisal on the vehicles that we have. So, here's the announcement here. Page 15 is a 93 Pierce Arrow. It's valued, we had an appraiser come in, it's worth $28,000. We're going to it is listed for sale. We're going to list it at $29,900 because you always have to come down. Turn the page. You're going to see the Spartan Hackney Rescue appraised at $55,000. We're going to list it, and this is really not available until September 15th. We're listing at $59,500, and then on page 17 we have the Pierce Aero Pumper 1990. Is that right? 1990? Yes. Okay. It's $18,000. We're listed for $22,000. You always want to own a fire truck? Anybody? Be the only one you need. But in the end, aren't you glad?
Yeah.
So I request that you approve this budget at the upcoming meeting. I don't see any changes in it. And the commission will have a roadmap to go forward. This has been approved by the Fire Commission, and also Chief David Cervetter was in the meeting. We went over it. He has it. There we are. And I wanted to be on time and not late.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that very much, and appreciate the detail and the time that you spent on it, and especially that you're looking ahead into the next year. So, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any comments or questions for Mr. Heisman?
I'm glad he was here, so you guys didn't have to ask me any questions.
We are too, Larry.
I appreciate his thoroughness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great.
Very good.
Yeah, thanks so much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Both of you. Okay. The board will consider approval of the 2014 budget amendments. Kathy?
should have two resolutions, one for amendments to the general fund budget and then also special revenue fund budget. And when we pulled up the board packet this afternoon, we noticed that the special revenue funds was not included, so it was emailed to you this afternoon.
Okay.
Can you convert that from Excel spreadsheet to a regular format? Yeah, for the
Sure.
resolution, that'd be great.
We can do that, yes.
Thank you.
I'm just going to highlight a few of the items on here. First of all, the general fund budget resolution, for the amendments to the 2014 budget. We're increasing the general fund revenues by about $536,000. And that was due primarily to the estimate in the property taxes appeared to be a little bit lower than what they actually come in at, and that was approximately $300,000. There's also revenue sharing. The state approved statutory revenue sharing. We're going to get about a half a year in 2014, so we increased it about $49,500 for that. Also, there was a building permit revenue increased about $148,000. It's my understanding there were just a number of more permits than what was originally anticipated. And on the expenditure side, the first line item for elections, we're actually reducing that budget. It appears there's going to be approximately $19,000 more than what will be used in 2014, so we're reducing that to help cover some, to help offset some of the other expenditures that will be over. There's about $10,000 in the clerk's budget, and that was due primarily to the line item contingent employee wages are estimated to be overspent. In the attorney's budget, about $55,000, and that was due primarily to higher than originally anticipated labor attorney fees and some court settlements. In the public services line item, that was primarily over due to snow plowing and drains. And in the building department, due to the additional permits, there was also additional inspections required associated with those. So the revenues are over, but also the expenditures as well that are related. And the last one is appropriations, about $200,000 in there. That is the transfer to the for the OPEB, the retiree health care, the amount being set aside for future retiree health care. And then the special revenue funds. Solid waste, we're also anticipating an increase in revenue of about $436,000. Once again, it appears that the estimate was just a little bit lower than what actually came in. And associated with that, we also have some additional expenditures where we believe it's due to additional homes that weren't anticipated. There's three other funds: drug forfeiture, law enforcement fund, and the law equitable sharing fund. They're all similar, so I'll talk about those together. The expenditures, these are kind of unknowns at the beginning of the year, and last year's budget, the revenue side, they budgeted $1 for in each of those funds. The law enforcement fund did not have any revenues. However, the drug enforcement and law equitable sharing fund both had additional revenues, so those are being increased to account for those. And on the expense side, the only expenditure is on the drug enforcement fund, and that is for operating supplies, which we're not budgeted for. We did incur some operating supplies of about $10,850. The next one is the employee benefits fund, which is the OPEB once again. The transfer coming from the general fund, we're budgeting for that here and amending the budget to account for that on both the revenue and expense side. The bicentennial park fund the revenue is being increased by about $7,000, which is due primarily to the dog park. There were no revenues budgeted for that. And on the expense side, we're actually increasing the expense by about $28,000, which is for the dog park. The $7,000 that came in as revenue went back out as an expense. And also there were additional expenditures for the pavilion. The PEG Channel Grant Fund is being increased on the revenue side by about it's being decreased on revenue, about $5,400. And that's due to the cable franchise fees were less than anticipated. And there's no change on the expenditure side. The campus project fund, the revenue in there is also being decreased by about $6,000. And the expenditures are being increased by $1,150. This is the fund that accounts for the millage for the bond for the police station. So it appears that those, the anticipated expenditures were off a little bit. And the last fund is the capital projects fund. We're increasing the revenue by about $150,000, and there were 3 items that weren't budgeted for that were received into this fund, about $15,000 from the Metro Act, $12,000 for the sale of fixed assets, and $123,000 reimbursement from the Parks and Recreation for the reimbursement of the pavilion. And there was no change to the expenditures.
Thank you. Yes, questions? Clark? Oh.
Yeah, I just had a question. I know you mentioned in the clerk's department that they had the contingent employee went over budget, right? And then, but they did have it in another fund within the clerk's department to, how much did it go over? But there was enough funds in the other account to offset, right?
It went over about $17,000 estimated. We took the actuals through the end of November and then estimated an additional month of expenditures.
Right, but the other funding part of the clerk, because there's 2 different funds there, that was the one that would offset it, right? So at least the clerk's department did offset its own overrun, right?
The elections, right?
Elections, right.
Right, that cost center was under budget.
Under budget,
So
right.
we're using some of those funds, yes, to offset.
Right, so they covered it within their own budget, right?
The 2 are both under the direction of the clerk.
Right.
Yes,
Madam
Clark?
Chair, through you to the Finance Director. Can we spend just a minute on the revenue for the OPEB? Original was $860,000, you're amending that to $400,000 for a decrease of $460,000, correct? Where do we, it's a budgetary thing that we determine the 860. It's not really a revenue coming in for OPEB, it's coming out of general fund as a revenue, correct?
General fund and DPW funds are both estimated to transfer $200,000 each.
Each, okay, now there we go, now.
Yeah, I'm not sure where the $860,000, how that was determined. We
That's
weren't
what
able to find any
I'm gonna look
documentation.
that up because
So
that
that
was.
wasn't right.
Yeah. But back for the budget, excuse me, resolution, just one question on that one. The $200,000 that you're showing under appropriations where the 2014 adopted was $1,277,000, we're gonna change that to $1,477,000. So we're going to pay $200,000 more against the OPEB liability than what we originally had planned. Is that,
There was nothing budgeted for the OPEB liability in the 2014 budget.
and we're gonna add $200,000 to that? Okay, that's a better, I mean, that's kind of what I, yeah, you did, you said great, but that's a good thing. Yes, you know, so.
Yeah.
And we heard during our audit, you know, that we were in a kind of a good situation with our post-employee benefits and our liabilities
Right.
as far as how we're paying that. So I like that. And now we're just adding $200,000 that the auditor didn't have, so, great.
We need to keep doing that. if we
Yes,
can.
absolutely.
I don't know if anybody's seen the list of municipalities
Yeah.
in Michigan, I have to get off track here, but there is a list of municipalities in Michigan that are not funding their retiree programs and to the tune that they should. And we have some right here in our area that
Absolutely.
are at the top of the list,
Absolutely.
unfortunately.
It will come about.
Yes.
Thank you very much, Kathy. Any other questions?
Very good.
Thank you so very much. Okay, the board will consider the appointment of Kathy Sozak to the Pension Advisory Fund. The finance director has always been co-chairman of the Pension Advisory Fund, so we'd like to continue that practice. And the second one is I was a deputy or whatever you call it to the I-69 under Keith, and since Keith is gone, I will be moving into that spot if you will be in. And the other, Craig Withers, he started out to be Parks and Recreation, but then we found out that we couldn't had to have an elected official for Parks and Recreation, so I asked him to be on the McFarland Library. Gary Gratch, who's been there for several years, is asking to be retired, and so I'm asking Craig to take that place. Yes.
If I may, I would like to bring up effective
Yeah.
January 2015, I will take on the appointment of Parks and Rec. I've looked at my schedule after December, and I think I'll be okay. So
Wonderful.
we'll be on Parks and Rec.
Thank you very, very much. That'll be great.
If you wanted to add a fourth to that for Thursday night,
What date, January 15th?
I'd have to look at the Parks and Rec
Put in
Commission, but
January.
just put in January, effective January 2015.
Okay,
I'll take on the board appointed
okay.
rep to Parks and Rec.
And with that, we will do the reports and yeah, thanks a lot, Larry. Go on to the Mr. Letty.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We, well, let's see, you have actually, I think you have, ahead of me, you have discussion items. You have water rate, DPW financial model, Mr. Potter, that he'll present to you tonight. And then we have a discussion item while we're still in this meeting for the superintendent position. And then I'll bring out just in my report, just the question about putting our meetings online. And then we have to prepare
Yeah.
to an executive session. So I think you're at the point where Mr. Potter will enlighten you as to the DPW financial.
All right.
We've been working with Plant Moran to kind of take a look at the financial modeling and see where we're at this point in time, 2012 when we started the process. And it looks like the DPW made significant progress towards those goals. What I'd like to do, what I've asked for is an additional $5,000 to take a look at what happens to the rates if we have to build one of these major projects that we've been looking at in either the water or the sewer. We have the District 8 improvements by Genesis property up in that area. We have 2 or 3 water system improvements that could be significant, and I think it'd be good to at least take a look and see what it does to the rates, so we can begin to plan for those, because we're probably going to see one of those projects go in the 2016 timeframe, I would imagine, maybe more than one. But I think it would be helpful to have a look at what those impacts would be.
So that's just putting it in the model, right?
It's, in the previous model, they didn't look at capital improvement, major capital improvement
We didn't
projects.
have it in there?
No, we just looked at minor, painting a tank and those kind of things, but not building a major infrastructure project. So what I'd like to do is, and they stated that in the model when they did it, is add that next component to the model so that we get a look at what happens to the rates. And we had a nice uptick in revenues from capital fees for connections to the sanitary sewer system. We're over 500,000 on both the water and sewer side for this year, and we haven't approached that in a number of years. So I think if we can look at a combination of capital fees and rates and kind of project where we think it might go, it'll give the board a sense of where we're going to be if we have to build one of those projects.
And what would the estimated cost be?
Well, it's $5,000 if we just look at the capital side of it. It's the total package, the last time we did it was $15,000. If we wanted to look at the entire package and give you the same package back, that would be $15,000. If we just want to add a capital improvement component to it, then we can do it for around $5,000.
So what are you asking for?
Well, I guess maybe, what would be the board's pleasure? Do we want to look at the whole package again? I mean, in the scope of what the money
You
is.
say the whole package, I don't understand what.
It'd be
Water,
sewer, capital improvements, and entire projection. And they have to go, if they do the entire model, they have to go through certain requirements of the accounting laws, and that's what increases the cost. So if we had, it's called attestation or something like that. So if we have to do all of that, then it's going to be an additional $10,000.
But right now, I thought the model allowed us to change all the rates and put a lot of numbers in there, but they want to update it? They don't have to update it.
They don't have to update it, we could update it ourselves. I just thought the board would be more comfortable with them doing it. And considering the size of the projects that we're looking at building that are, $8-10 million projects, I thought the board would be.
I think
more
the 5,000 is a
confident.
good idea. I'm just
Yeah.
questioning the rate part, because I know we can change the rates anytime we want, and it automatically tells us, okay, if you have this much expense, here's how much the rate has to go up. It tells us that already, right?
Well, and the DPW has made enough progress, it appears, that the rate of increase of those rates can go down. And because that could happen, I want to look at what it's going to happen if we have to build a project and where that rate of increase goes if we have to build one of those major projects.
Right. I think we do have to have the major project in there so we can get a clear picture.
Yeah,
So
I would
we'll
like
kick
to
it.
go with the capital projects area first to see if
Okay.
we have to expand, then we can look at that. But I'd like to do the capital project.
That kind of project where
Yeah.
areas of expansion may need to be.
Mhm.
I would suspect, over the past 2 years, we've seen some growth, and every year it's exceeded what I thought it would,
Mhm.
and I got a
They-
suspicion
yeah.
that when this Dort Highway extension and stuff gets completed, that it's gonna
Mhm.
boom a little bit more.
And that District 8 build-out should be fairly significant also, so.
Yeah, it's a big number, that one, so.
So I guess my, at this point in time, we probably need to begin to go with the 5 and kind of let that, see where that puts us. I also hope that when the Carigani water pipeline is in place, that helps us tremendously. That's what the.
What was it?
When that Carigani water pipe gets completed, that's hopefully gonna help us a lot with the water costs.
Sure.
It's going to take some time for that to impact us, but
Mhm.
those numbers cross up
Yeah.
there.
Right, down the
10
road,
years or so.
sooner or later, we're gonna see the benefits of that.
Yeah.
Right. And that's going to start construction in the spring, the pipeline, the major part of the pipeline.
Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right,
Okay.
I have a conference call with Planner on Thursday morning to kind of outline the scope based on what this discussion was tonight. So if that discussion changes at all, I'll be back Thursday night to discuss it with you. But other than that, we'll assume that the $5,000 that we're going, that's reasonable assumptions.
Are you comfortable with that? You think that's a good way to go?
I am, but I want to make sure Plan Moran is comfortable with it. We originally talked about one number, then they talked, if you want the whole thing done and the attestation, then it's going to be around the same number as it was last time. So we need to discuss the scope and make sure that they're comfortable also.
And when was last time? How long ago?
2011, 12.
Okay.
Larry,
Any
you
other
see
questions? I'm
that?
sorry.
One more question. I know Keith's not with us to answer that. Before Mr. Edwards left, what was his feeling? What was his plan? Was he involved in this at all?
Yes, his original idea to have the $5,000 look at it right now to see where we were at.
Okay,
This is adding to the scope that he wanted to conclude.
thanks.
Yes, Scott.
Yeah, not necessarily on topic, but on the topic of water with Kirigandi. Who would we speak with regard to, the finished product that we're going to get and things that are like fluoride and those that, may be opposed to some of the things that they are planning to put in the water system? Would that be Jeff Wright?
Jeff, yeah.
The Jeff staff, yes, that's the place to start. I can answer a number of questions about the project, but fluoride is probably one that you're going to have to talk to his staff about what their plans are for fluoride. And I'm not sure, I know they have fluoride addition in plans for the project right now. I don't know what the treatment levels are, but I know it's in the plans for fluoride.
I'd like to
Pretty
see some
standard.
money.
Yeah, I would.
I think you have a hard time at the state level, not
Yeah.
providing fluoride.
Okay.
It's almost done.
Mhm. Okay, any other questions for Mr. Potter? Thank you very much. Okay?
Madam Chair, we're on to, I think, discussion regarding the superintendent position. And as you know, Mr. Edwards is wrapping up his responsibilities here and leaving us a vacant position in the superintendent's office. And so I'm looking for some guidance and some discussion about where we go next. I think that in the immediate short term, Ms. Hoffman and Ms. Reardon and Mr. Kuzak have been doing a great job in trying to find out exactly what the day-to-day hot button issues are and dealing with those. I think that we don't have an immediate crisis on our hands necessarily as far as the management duties are concerned, but we want to decide which way we want to go in the future. In the past, we've had 2 full-time superintendents. We set this position up 6 years ago with a lot of deliberation, and so we need to decide if we're going to continue forward with the full-time superintendent model, number one, or if there's some long-term change or analysis we want to engage in regarding that. And depending on your answer to that, if we want to immediately begin a search, whether it be limited in region and scope or whether it be nationwide, and the timing, that has to be discussed. So with those options, I'd like to throw it out to the board for some deliberation and potentially some direction.
Okay. I think we definitely need to have a full-time hired superintendent as we had before. And I know I've heard some people out there in the public and even the letter together talk about why we need 2 managers, 2 full-time managers. Well, realistically, the model we had set up is for a full-time hired superintendent that manages the township, and then an elected supervisor, which is required under state law, that is, although maybe easily puts in 40 hours a week, it's not full-time pay. It's $18,000 a year, and that's not going to break our budget. I think any successful organization has a good leader, and we need a full-time, qualified, diligent leader that can run the day-to-day operations of this place and help this board so we can prepare for 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years down the road while we have an elected, or excuse me, hired superintendent that is here running things day-to-day for us.
Okay. Clark, we had his hand up first.
No, I just.
Oh, I'm sorry, you didn't, all right. Okay, Earl?
Yes, I agree with that. I believe the full-time position is needed with the size of this township, and I think it should be a nationwide search, and just go pull Mr. Dunlow's file and whatever we sent out on that, and then, of course, I think we added a Monster and a couple other items out there that we got a lot of hits on last time. So I think it's just, but I would suggest that we don't put a value of the dollar on there like we did. Leave it open because we have the best success of leaving no dollar out there, and we'll find the best candidate, and then we'll negotiate with them so that we can find the best candidate.
One note is if there is consensus to go ahead with the full-time immediate search, we're going to utilize all the resources that we did for our last very successful searches for our DPW director and our finance director.
Right.
The benefits are obvious tonight. So we're going to have as an aggressive search as we had in the past, and as wide in scope as we can have too. But that's, again, it looks to me like we've got the beginning of momentum for that direction, but I'll let you continue down the dais here and figure out if there's consensus for it.
Okay, well, for myself, I think that a superintendent works out well. I would like to go on a nationwide search. I would like to have us work on the qualifications and what we want on that, and go into that a little deeper than we have in the past, so that we know exactly what we want here before we go out. But I do want to go on a nationwide search, and I'd like to start it as soon as possible, particularly, once we get the qualifications out, and which I think we can do by the end of the year, and start the search in January.
And I agree with these 3 totally. The sooner we get it out there, the better, and we do need to have the qualifications together.
Revised.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Right.
Gentlemen, any thoughts?
I agree with all that's said.
Okay.
I've got a few
One
comments.
thing that I'm sorry,
That's right, go ahead.
the one thing that I'd ask is until we get a supervisor, or until we get the superintendent in here, I would like to have some additional money to take over the job. Okay.
Next conversation, let's bring that up next.
Yeah, okay.
I agree with everything you said. I guess, I think one of the things I read, there was a letter to the editor that I read, that I think maybe we need to clarify for the public what
Yeah.
the difference is. And I thought of writing an editorial in response, but I kind of see it kind of like a corporate, you've got the chairman of the board that runs the board meetings and make
Right.
sure that we're headed in the direction that we want, and then the day-to-day operation of that superintendent. I think evidently, not all the public is aware of, differentiation of roles. I like the idea of us hiring that person full-time as opposed to it being,
Right.
the voters obviously can vote us in or out, depending on who we hire for that job.
Right.
I think that also right now is we've hired some great people on our staff. I think it's a great time for them to shine and
Right.
show us their leadership. I think
And
that
they have been so helpful. All the directors have been so helpful.
Yeah, so I think that our management team hopefully can fill in the gaps. Hopefully our person that takes the position is able to free themselves up from day-to-day operations, to do some of the long-term stuff, and that we can rely on our department heads to take care of day-to-day operations. So I kind of see that maybe helping us to see where we are staff-wise
Yeah.
in the absence of a superintendent. I agree with you, Mickey, that we need to take a look at, have some discussion on who we want in this position and what types of things. Do we want somebody just to manage, or do we want to, look down the road and what kinds of things we want to look at, what strengths that person needs to have. I would, so I'm not sure that we're in a rush. I want to make sure we take care of those things. I would definitely be in favor of, increasing some pay for you for your added responsibilities as well.
Madam Chair, it sounds to me like there's consensus as to the ultimate direction we want to go, and that we want to have as wide a search as we can.
Yeah.
It sounds to me like we want to have some discussion about highlighting the qualities and the qualifications of a potential candidate. And the way that I envision this process moving forward is that you and Mr. Guzak and Ms. Raritan and I will gather up the documents and we'll lay out a roadmap for advertisements and also the process. It sounds to me, though, that we want to give some thought, at least to, again, the substantive qualities that this person might have.
That's right.
And so I'm wondering, we're not going to have a meeting, Thursday's our last meeting in December. We're going to convene again in July under our regular schedule, or in January under our regular schedule. So what I think, what I'd like to know, I guess, is I think we can have a roughed up template package for you to review and discuss at your January meeting. You also want to set aside some time in January to talk about the qualifications that you want to have. Is that too soon? Is that not soon
No,
enough?
I think that would be fine.
Does that sound like a reasonable timeline for everybody?
Yes.
I printed this stuff up offline. It's, everybody, I don't know, everybody probably knows that it's out of that. I think it's out of the Red Book, but it's Michigan law.
Yeah, your packets, you're going to get like 50 pages of documents there.
No, this is just the easy page for people
No,
to
that's
look over.
it's just what the township, just what the supervisor does, the superintendent, when you delegate supervisor's duties to the superintendent.
Right, we'll go into that in a lot of detail for you. Now, again, the one thing I want to get some input on is the January timeline for the initial procedure, and also setting aside time for an in-depth discussion about qualifications. Does that fit everybody's eye?
Yeah.
Or sooner.
I think, well, the only way to do it sooner is to have a special meeting, or otherwise that's our timeline. The other thing that we want to do, though, you might want to have some time to reflect on your experiences with Mr. Dunnell, if you had them, and all your experiences with Mr. Edwards. And also I'm going to ask him to provide some insight into observations here as well. So we can gather that all up and get an idea of where we've been, where we're going. And once we begin the process, it's probably, let's say optimistically, we start in January, mid-January. I think you're looking at least a 30 or 45-day procedure.
Yeah.
And turning to that last issue is you have not only Mr. Guzak and Ms. Reardon putting in additional efforts, which I greatly appreciate, but you have Mickey, who's got more responsibility than she's ever had before and more duties. And so she's made a request potentially for some additional consideration. That, again, given the timeline of probably at least, as we see it here today, 2 months, that might be something you want to reflect on.
Do we have a precedence of this nature where we've lacked a superintendent? I'm just wondering in terms of, compensation and well, if we've done anything like this in the past.
Well, last time when Mr. Dunn did, the main crew just took care of it. Myself, Mickey, and the clerk, and Mr. Lighty took care of it.
I'm going to let your question lead right into my response, because as Mr. Lighty was talking, I was doing my other here. The only precedents I can think of for a long-term person filling that role would be prior to this township going to a superintendent, and that was back in the 2008 under Mr. Zittel was the elected supervisor, and I believe his compensation was it close to $70,000 a year? Okay. Mickey Hoffman generously does this job for $18,000 a year. No benefits, because she's got that covered through retirement, so she's been doing us a great favor. I would have no problem for the duration of whatever this interim is until we hire a superintendent of doubling that. We need, that would give her $39,000 a year to do a job that used to pay, I'm going off ballpark here, but I'm thinking $60,000, $70,000 a year plus benefits. I think she probably more than deserves that, but I think.
I'm not thinking that's enough, because it's not for a whole year. It's just probably for a month or two. So maybe 70,000 was a little on the high side, because other people will be helping, but I mean, Dean will be real involved, right? We'll all be involved more. But maybe like, I don't know, 60,000 divided by 12, 5,000 a month. Did you have a figure thought out, Mickey?
I was going to ask for 25,000, yeah.
Extra, or for the duration?
25,000,
Total?
well,
Prorated?
total, yeah.
Just a lump sum.
Well, that might, well, I'm just saying that it would, I didn't have, it so that I would earn 25,000 a year, yeah.
No,
You
no,
mean
no,
additional
that's not enough.
7,000?
That is not enough.
Yeah,
That's why he said double it, so.
Yeah, I'm thinking of an additional like 5,000 a month. It's probably gonna be 2 months worth,
Yeah.
so that would only put it up to 28,000, but.
Yeah, I figure right now she's making, if she stayed the same, she'd be about $1,500 per month. And again, I agree, $1,500 per month to that $18,000 per year. Right. So 8 months, right, times 12 months. If we went to $3,000 per month, just a flat $3,000 per month salary, doubling that, that would put her at 39. And I agree that might even be.
Yeah, would be perfect, yeah.
$3,900 per month.
For 3,000 per month, 39,000 annual salary. And I'm open to discuss that more.
36,000 per year.
So we hire somebody else.
3,000.
Yeah, so they
Say
hire
3,000 a
yeah,
month.
whatever,
It's a year.
yeah. No, let's not do that. We will find somebody by a year.
Yeah, this better be 6 months or less.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
Yes.
Through you to Mr. Laddie, where do we mingle into the state law here requiring full-time paid to the position? I mean, do we have a?
Well, no, we set the position, this is interesting, we set the salary and set the responsibilities in part with the creation of the superintendent's duties, and we took basically the handout that I think Chris has, and delegated those duties specifically to the superintendent position, and then lowered as the duties and pay the supervisor's salary. And so we don't have a part-time, we don't have somebody taking less wage than has been assigned to them. What you're gonna, and that's important because in the past we've had unfortunately experiences with folks that have said they're gonna work for less money and then ended up wanting that money years later. That isn't the situation with Mickey. So what we'd be doing is if we decide to go ahead and pay this additional amount of money, we'll set it on for a resolution, I think, on Thursday if you're ready for it. And we'll have a specific beginning and an end. And we'll recognize that the duties will potentially increase during that time. But then upon the hiring of a new superintendent, the duties will be reduced again.
Mhm. Right.
Right.
And so, and by the way, I'm hearing these figures somewhere around $3,000 a month.
I think it should be more. I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say that.
3,000 in addition, you're saying?
No, totally, same total.
I'm saying total. My
That's what you were saying.
thought was total. And if you disagree with me,
No.
I agree, you deserve it, so
Yeah.
you know more than I do what you do on a day-to-day basis.
Mhm.
I don't know that she knows her value though. Because she really is here all the time. And I just don't think that's enough. But if you're happy with it, maybe I'm happy with it.
Okay, well, that's, yeah, I'm happy with it, I just.
We'll add it to the agenda then on Thursday. And again, think about the process. We don't need to have a discussion, an in-depth discussion on Thursday about it or any sort of action other than Mickey Stipend, but that's about what we've got in mind. And so we will begin gathering up the documents and again, give some thought to what direction you want to go.
Mhm.
We will carry it out.
Now, does that start right immediately or December 31st?
Oh, Mickey's responsible, I think that it should start immediately. I mean, she's really been doing that since, well, and again, and this has been interesting, I want to make a comment about this. Going forward, her responsibilities are going to increase even more than they have. And so I think if you started it, for example, on your pay cycle starting, whatever next Monday is, that might be, okay, is that reasonable to you?
Sure.
And that'll coincide again with Nikki and Earl. You guys are going to be doing additional work. We will start putting together the package on Tuesday and start to
Yeah.
disseminate it over the holidays. So.
Mhm.
Very good. Any questions or comments?
No. Thank you.
All right. I'll carry on since I guess I'm the manager's report. And the one issue, and I'm going to carry on by tossing the ball to Scott. Scott, you've done a fair amount of groundwork regarding making video recordings of the minutes potentially available with the permission of the school. And why don't you go ahead and describe?
Well, it came up at the last meeting, we had talked about it a while back, but we had a couple of people in the audience that mentioned that, they don't see the video of our meetings on cable.
Mhm.
And we do have some people that don't have cable.
Mhm.
And we have the DVD or the recording of the meeting, so why not make it available to everybody that has internet access? I guess you could even go to the library if you don't have internet access. And it would be, I actually emailed Mickey and David regarding this, our chair, our attorney, and about this, and David, our attorney, mentioned that we want to get permission from the school and from Nicole, does our videotaping. And so I emailed them. The response was favorable. They have no issue with it. And so actually I just checked online, and there's many other townships that if you go on YouTube, you can see many other townships in Michigan that have meetings on there, whether it's one or all. But it's just a good reference point, and I think we have people that we want involved in their township. We want transparency, and I really don't see any reason why we wouldn't want to.
Sure, because look how good you look.
I don't know about that, but
camera on you.
my my speaking maybe isn't always as intelligible as I'd like, but we'll work on all those things. And so
Did you talk to
I would-
Robbie, can he do it? Would he be the one to do it, or did you want to take that?
well, I think, basically, I've been talking to Nicole, they can, actually, it'd be easier for them to upload it rather than delivering it
Yeah.
as DVD here. They can upload it to YouTube.
Okay,
And Robbie can create a link on
that'd be
the
great.
website
Yeah.
to link it to that. So is everybody okay with doing that? Because we can put some of the past meetings and try it and see how it works.
Definitely, I
Then any
appreciate
future
the-
employer can Google me on YouTube and see how I act. I don't know.
Right.
I am in favor, I like it.
No, and I appreciate the research you've done on it and the contacts you've made on it, Scott. I really do think it's a good idea.
How hard is it, Nicole?
Shouldn't be hard. It's more work, but it's
Yeah,
easy
that's what I'm
work.
thinking. We
It's
have
just
to
easy work,
compensate
yeah.
you,
No,
which-
it's
Which I
easy.
think we could out of PEG funds.
It's just uploading video,
Okay.
unless it pauses and stops, and then I gotta redo it again. But it's just easy work.
Okay.
So it's okay if we go
It's
forward
fine
with
with me. I think
Yeah.
it's a good
creating a
idea.
YouTube channel? and-
Yeah.
I think a lot of our residents, and I agree, I've heard it from residents too, as well as you and other members of this board, that they want to have better access to it. They can't make it here tonight.
Yeah.
They want to see, so yeah, great idea.
Yeah.
Okay. Last but not least, I'd like you to go into a closed session. We have two topics, and we'd actually like to have some of the staff come with us on each item. And the first one will be a written attorney's opinion that we'd like Mr. Potter and Mr. Sears to attend if they can. And the second item will be labor negotiation discussions with Mr. Fanning, who's been waiting patiently, as well as Ms. Sostak. So I think the first item would be quicker. And so if we adjourn into closed session to discuss a written attorney opinion and also then to proceed into labor negotiations, that would be good.
Okay.
Motion to go into executive session to discuss the two items proposed. Mr. Leddy?
Support?
Roll call?
Mr. Bennett?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Mrs. Hoffman?
Yes.
Mr. Guzik?
Yes.
Mr. Anderson? Mr. Kent?
Yes.
Thank you. Have a good week.